My father said I was the snake god's wife, destined by birth to marry the snake god. I refused to believe it, but after bringing my boyfriend back to the village, the dream of being coiled by a giant snake became reality. My gentle and refined boyfriend transformed into a dark and obsessive snake god. It turned out that from the moment I left the village, he was coveting me, dressed in wedding attire. Kneeling in the ancestral hall, my boyfriend's gentle whispers filled my ears. Happy wedding. My bride. Which college graduate gets pressured into marriage right after graduation? After receiving my dad's 10th call urging me to come home and get married, I turned and threw myself into the arms of my boyfriend, who wore gold-rimmed glasses, nuzzling my head against his shoulder. What should I do? My dad keeps pressuring me to go back and get married. Simon pulled me into his embrace, his voice husky from just waking up. Since your father is urging you, then we'll go back. His hands were large, and he always liked to hold my waist, encircling me in his arms. I really like this size difference. It gives me a sense of being protected by him, but sometimes, I can't stand the intensity of his restraint. I patted his hand, and finally, the pressure eased a little. I deliberately said, but my dad said I have to go home to marry the snake god. I can't marry you. Simon turned his head, the glare from his glasses under the light making his expression unreadable. The arm wrapped around my waist tightened even more. You can only marry me. I've been with Simon for 4 years, but I never dared to mention him to my parents. Before leaving the village for university, my parents and the villagers surrounded me in the ancestral hall, making me swear not to fall in love. Just because I am the wife of the snake god, I am destined to marry the snake god in this lifetime. Born in an era with sound core values. I naturally don't believe in these supernatural beings and strongly criticize such feudalistic ideas. In the end, my parents gave me a beating, and only after I tearfully promised did this heart-to-heart meeting come to an end. Who would have thought that the moment I stepped into university, I would fall in love at first sight with Simon, who helped me carry my luggage. In the blink of an eye, we've been together for 4 years. This is the first time I'm bringing him home, lately. I've been dreaming a lot. In my dreams, I enter a deep mountain shrouded in mist, with dense thickets all along the way, showing no signs of human existence. Just as I was exhausted and couldn't hold on any longer, a cave appeared ahead. The cave was deep and dark, like an impenetrable net, enveloping me, making me uneasy. Yet, the sound of murmuring water came from inside, carrying a fatal attraction. With my mouth parched and throat dry, I ultimately entered the cave. The moment I stepped into the cave, a gust of wind carrying rustling sounds approached me. I sensed something was wrong. I wanted to run, but it was already too late. A massive white serpent's tail lifted me high, bringing my gaze level with its golden vertical pupils. The eerie golden vertical pupils stared unblinkingly at me, their sticky gaze scrutinizing my body, as if measuring or perhaps admiring. To it, I was merely prey that could be swallowed in one gulp. I was certain I would die here. Under my despairing gaze, its body began to transform. The snake's head gradually shrank. Before me appeared a man with a human body and a snake's tail, but I couldn't clearly see his face. Daisy, I've missed you so much. Daisy, Simon's voice pulled me back from the dream to reality. Had a nightmare. Why are you so pale? Simon's fingertips, cool to the touch, brushed against my face. A shiver ran through my body, a chill rising from the soles of my feet. Simon wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me into his embrace, and reassured me, don't be afraid, we'll be there soon. The warm body temperature enveloped me, and I hugged Simon tightly in return, trying to use his warmth to drive away that nauseating chill. The car soon arrived at the village entrance. The village entrance was still several kilometers from my home, but the driver refused to go any further, leaving us at the entrance. Fortunately, Simon and I had only walked a few steps when we saw my parents coming to pick us up on a tricycle. I thought my dad would yell at me or even hit me when he saw Simon, but he just stared at Simon for a long time without saying a word. Upon hearing of my return, the village chief and several uncles were waiting at home. After I entered, the uncles also came forward to greet me. Simon, who was following me, stepped over the threshold and entered the house as well. However, upon seeing Simon, the uncles froze in their spots. The eldest uncle was the first to react, gesturing toward Simon with his chin. Daisy, is this your boyfriend? Feeling a bit embarrassed, I took Simon's hand. worried my dad might scold me, so I could only answer softly. They didn't seem as upset as I expected about me bringing my boyfriend home. At least none of them scolded me in front of Simon. I secretly squeezed Simon's hand under the table. My dad didn't even yell at me. The snake god thing must be fake too. Simon's eyes crinkled with amusement as he adjusted his thin gold-rimmed glasses, his fingertips lightly tracing circles on my palm. Perhaps because Simon was present, my parents and uncles didn't bring up the matter of the snake god. In the evening, my mom arranged for my dad to share a room with Simon. I was worried my dad might target Simon, so I specifically reminded my dad a few times, only to be glared back at with a sharp look. Simon, however, had no objections. He patted my head and told me not to worry. Then, he turned around good-naturedly and went into my dad's room. After my mom chased Simon into my dad's room, she still wasn't at ease and insisted on staying with me that night. It had been a long time since I last saw my mom, and we had endless things to talk about. Eventually, the conversation turned to the snake god. I asked my mom, why was I the one chosen to marry the snake god? My mother stared at me strangely for a long time. After all these years, no one has ever seen the snake god. Who knows? I snorted. Then what does it matter whether I marry or not? My mother paused for a long while before slowly saying, that was decided by the older generation. Daisy, it's just a formality, don't take it too seriously. My mother must have been tired. Her voice sounded a bit hoarse. After saying this, no matter what else I asked, she wouldn't speak. She fell asleep. But I didn't dare to sleep. I've been having the same dream every day for a month now. The scenes in the dream keep repeating in a loop. Even in the final moments of the dream, those unspeakable things could be vividly felt by my body. It was somewhat better when Simon was by my side before. In the haze between sleep and wakefulness, I saw many people standing around me. Everything was bathed in fiery red, candlesticks, lanterns, a bright red wedding dress, bowed to heaven and earth, accompanied by a shrill voice. I finally realized where I was, dressed in wedding attire. I stood in the ancestral hall. Through the blood-red veil, I saw my parents sitting at the table with their heads bowed, their faces hidden in the shadows, and standing before me was a man also dressed in wedding attire. I desperately tried to turn my head to look, but found my body bending uncontrollably. The moment I raised my head, I caught a glimpse of a white serpent's tail flashing beneath the red wedding robe. The snake god. Fear spread through me, but what was even more despairing was realizing I couldn't control my own body. I felt like a soul trapped within this body, unable to move anything except my eyes, bow to the parents, following the matchmaker's voice. My head gradually lowered. No, this can't be real. I don't want to get married. I don't want to marry the snake god. Simon, save me. Simon, Simon. The moment I opened my eyes, I was met with my mother's gloomy gaze, and I shrank back in fear. Mom, stop calling me, go to sleep. Her voice was hushed, sounding somewhat unreal. A shiver ran down my spine, and I instinctively moved further away from her. My mom isn't quite right. I want to go find Simon. There's a voice in my head constantly telling me, go find Simon. Simon can protect you. Go find Simon, Mom. Simon probably won't sleep well at our place. I'll go. My mother's eyes suddenly turned fierce, her voice hoarse as she hissed at me, her calloused hands gripping my wrist tightly. You're not allowed to go. Make him leave tomorrow. Don't even think about being with him. He's no good. I was too frightened to move, my wrist aching from her tight grip. Before I could react, her tone suddenly softened. Daisy Lynn, I miss you so much, but you can't. You mustn't. Her words became fragmented, her voice growing quieter until it faded into silence. His murky eyes remained fixed on me, yet the hand gripping mine showed no sign of loosening. Everything happened too quickly, but something was clearly wrong. A chill enveloped me from behind, and the familiar face of my mother seemed to have transformed into someone else. She doesn't seem to be my mother. I spent the entire night curled up in the corner of the bed, wide awake, because that night, my mother didn't sleep either. In the darkness, I could clearly feel my mother's venomous gaze. Until dawn broke, my mother finally collapsed weakly, holding my breath. I tried to quietly escape from her grasp, but her hands clamped around me like iron shackles. Knock knock. Someone knocked on the door. At this moment, even the slightest sound could completely shatter my fragile state of mind. Fortunately, in the next second, Simon's gentle voice, like divine light, enveloped me, dispelling the chill that had seeped into my bones. Daisy. Are you awake? I opened my mouth, desperately trying to break free from my mother's grasp, longing to call out for Simon, but I suddenly realized I couldn't make a sound. Simon was right outside the door, yet I couldn't even cry for help. Simon, save me, please save me, come save me, I miss you so much. Simon outside the door seemed to hear my cry for help, twisting the doorknob in an attempt to open it, yet it wouldn't budge. I tried to break free from my mother's grip, but she held on too tightly, and I feared waking her. Desperate, I looked toward the door, hoping Simon could somehow sense my plea through the thick wooden barrier. Simon couldn't open the door, so he knocked again and said gently, Daisy, could you open the door? The next second, my mother released her grip on my hand abruptly. I scrambled off the bed, rushed to open the door, and threw myself into Simon's arms before I could even see his face clearly. Simon, I'm so scared. Simon took a step back as I pounced on him, then steadied himself and wrapped an arm around my waist, firm and secure. It made me feel incredibly safe. Simon whispered soothingly, don't be afraid, Daisy, I'm here. His scorching breath brushed against my neck, his voice husky from waking, carrying a suppressed allure. Hearing his voice inexplicably, my panicked heart gradually calmed down. I held onto him tightly, not daring to let go. A voice in my head kept telling me, stay with Simon. It's the safest, but I didn't know that behind me, Simon looked at my unconscious mother with an inscrutable gaze, a faint hint of murderous intent flickering in his eyes. I asked Simon to take me away from here. I didn't dare to stay alone anymore. Simon led me out the door, holding my hand tightly the whole way, his slightly cool fingertips warmed by my body heat. Simon has a very unique constitution. The first time I saw him was in summer. He was dressed entirely in black, his whole body shrouded in darkness except for that exquisitely handsome face. When he helped me with my luggage, I accidentally touched his hand. On a scorching summer day, his fingers carried a chill. Later, Simon said he had a weak constitution since childhood, having lived in the countryside where he often went hungry and cold, and even fell ill. Gradually, his constitution became somewhat unusual, despite it being the scorching dog days of summer outside. He was still fully dressed in long sleeves and pants, but I really like his constitution. The summer heat was intense, but as long as I was with him, there was a natural coolness that felt very comfortable. He loved holding me, saying that we both got what we needed from each other. I seek coolness, he seeks warmth. Later, that chill spread through my limbs as our skin touched. Simon pulled me along the village path. The sky was hazy now, shrouded in thick fog, obscuring the way forward. I followed Simon step by step, pondering whether I should tell him about last night's events. I could clearly sense that something was off with my mother, but Simon didn't know. He never believed in supernatural legends to begin with. If I told him now about everything that happened last night, he probably wouldn't believe me anyway, but I was truly terrified inside. I didn't dare go back again. Before I knew it, the morning mist had dissipated, and I only realized it when I came to my senses. Simon and I were already standing at the entrance of the ancestral hall. What was even more terrifying was that this ancestral hall looked exactly like the one in my dream. The ancient-style mansion had eerie snake sculptures placed at its entrance, and even the reddish-brown plaque inscribed with Lincoln Family Ancestral Hall was engraved with snake patterns. Fear spread through me, and I dared not take another step forward. Standing frozen in place, Simon noticed and pulled me into his embrace. Whispering softly, "Little runaway, would you like to come inside for a while?" I didn't realize anything unusual about his words. My ears seemed to only catch the phrase, "come inside." I shook my head frantically, clinging desperately to Simon instead. "I don't want to go in, Simon, let's go back. I'm scared." I was trapped in last night's dream, unable to break free. The deep red around me resembled chains of doom, slowly creeping closer. The cold silk wrapped around my limbs like serpents. My vision was engulfed in red. Through the gauzy curtain, I saw the man standing opposite me again, dressed in wedding attire. "Daisy, Daisy." Simon's voice pulled me out of the terrifying hallucination. I stared at his gentle, handsome face, my mind in utter chaos. "It's raining, Daisy," Simon said. "Let's find shelter, shall we?" A drop of water landed on my face, and the next moment, The rain poured down in torrents. I had no time to think, dragging Simon as I rushed toward the ancestral hall, under the eaves. Just as I was about to step over the threshold, I suddenly froze. My subconscious warned me, "Don't go there, it's dangerous, Daisy." I snapped back to reality and met Simon's concerned dark eyes. Calming myself, I took Simon's hand. "Let's just take shelter from the rain here, Simon, don't go inside. Uncle said we shouldn't enter without permission." Seeing my insistence, Simon didn't press further and quietly stood with me under the eaves, waiting for the rain to stop. I pulled Simon to sit on the stone steps beside us and curled myself into his embrace. Only by sensing Simon's presence can I truly feel that my surroundings are safe. The moment I leave Simon's side, eerie and terrifying hallucinations overwhelm me. Breathing in Simon's faint, fresh scent, my consciousness gradually blurs after a sleepless night. Just before slipping into sleep, I clutch Simon's collar and whisper pleadingly, "Simon, don't go into the ancestral hall, I'm really scared." Feeling Simon's arm around my waist tighten, as if trying to merge me into his very bones. All right, as Daisy says, this sleep was incredibly peaceful, without dreams or hallucinations. When I slowly woke up, I was still in Simon's embrace. Simon leaned against the stone steps, his arms holding me tightly without loosening, his gaze fixed on me with tenderness. At the freshman social, I confessed my feelings to Simon. At that time, Simon was completely enveloped in darkness, his expression unclear under the flickering lights, his fingers idly playing with a wine glass resting on his knee. My heart swayed along with the trembling liquid. After a long silence, Simon let out a soft sigh, his slender fingers stretched toward me as he said, "Daisy, I love you too." As if under a spell, I felt dizzy and lightheaded, then my fingers reached out to meet his. Simon noticed, propping his elbow beside my ear, pulling me into his embrace. "Daisy," trying to escape, a chilling sensation crept into my body as Simon's magnetic, husky voice whispered in my ear, "Too late, you're mine. There's no running away." I woke up when the sun was high in the sky, glaring resentfully at Simon, my face full of displeasure, but in my dazed state. I caught sight of an extremely faint figure in the ancestral hall. In an instant, the ambiguity was diluted by fear. I pushed Simon away and pointed at the ancestral hall for him to see. Simon looked at me in confusion, indicating there was nothing there. A wave of cold dread swept over me, and I dragged Simon out of the ancestral hall. The slimy sensation of being watched didn't fade until we were 100 meters away from the ancestral hall. Simon pursed his lips, tightening his grip on my arm without saying a word. As we walked home, I was nearly driven to collapse by the haunting images from the ancestral hall and last night's events. If Simon hadn't been holding me, I might have fallen to my knees right there. Less than 50 meters from home, from afar, I could see my mother standing at the door, looking around. When they spotted me, they waved and called out, "Daisy, where have you been so early in the morning? Come back quickly for breakfast." My mother stood beside my father, beaming with a smile, as if the gloom from last night had vanished. I felt a bit dazed, standing still, not daring to move. Simon whispered in my ear, "It's Mom and Dad." The mist cleared, and I saw the slightly reproachful yet concerned faces of my parents. "That's right, it's Mom and Dad, but last night's Mom." Before I could think further, Simon led me inside. My mother teased as usual, saying the sun must have risen from the west today since I got up so early. I tugged at the corner of my lips without speaking, my eyes fixed on Mom, unwilling to miss any of her expressions. Yet the Mom before me was no different from usual, as if last night had been just a dream I had. I didn't dare let my guard down completely and finished the meal trembling with fear. After the meal, the same group from last night came to the house again. This time, not only my uncle but also the respected elders from the village came. They also brought a letter wrapped in red cloth. My uncle handed me the letter and told me to open it and read it myself. My gut tells me this isn't anything good. I threw the red cloth onto the table with a cold expression and said, "I won't marry that monster." "You can give up on that idea." The series of bizarre incidents had nearly driven me to the brink of a mental breakdown. Uncle's face darkened. "This isn't up to you to decide. Before you left the village, you knelt in the ancestral hall and made a vow." It wasn't just Uncle. Dozens of people around me were staring at me with grim expressions. "Those are all feudal superstitions," I shouted. "There's no such thing as a snake god. you made it all up, it's just your own greed at work. These words were meant for them, but also for myself. There is no snake god, Daisy, you mustn't speak such nonsense. The snake god truly exists, said Grandma Linda, the village elder, her murky, chilling gaze fixed on me. When your mother gave birth to you, the snake god came to see you, you are his chosen one, this is your fate. When I was little, Grandma Linda loved me the most and would always secretly slip me candies, yet through all the hardships, I can no longer tell whether her affection was genuine or premeditated. I refuse to accept it. What fate? My fate is my own. I still have a boyfriend. I won't marry the snake god. I looked at Simon, casting a pleading glance his way. But deep down, I knew Simon was an outsider. He had no say in this matter. Simon gave me a reassuring look and said slowly, everyone claims the snake god exists, but has anyone here actually seen it with their own eyes? Simon's words made everyone present frown. They had indeed never seen the snake god with their own eyes, but their ancestors had been worshipping the snake god for over 100 years, during this century, because they continuously offered sacrifices to the snake god. The village had always enjoyed favorable weather and never experienced any disasters. As everyone exchanged uneasy glances, Simon added, since none of you have seen it, isn't it possible that the snake god no longer needs your offerings? Nonsense. Grandma Linda snapped back to her senses and immediately cut him off. Glaring at Simon with furious eyes, you're an outsider, you have no right to speak here. If it weren't for the fact that you're Daisy's boyfriend, we would have thrown you out long ago. As soon as Grandma Linda finished speaking, Uncle scolded sharply, Auntie, don't talk nonsense. Grandma Linda froze for a moment and looked at Uncle. A trace of discomfort crept across Uncle's aged face. Soon, he turned to me again and said in a calm, persuasive tone, Daisy, whether the snake god exists or not, we must hold the ceremony. You made this vow yourself, don't you remember? Seeing that I was about to refuse, he added, indeed, we haven't seen the snake god all these years, but my ancestors did witness it. During 1 year of drought, all the surrounding villages suffered greatly, yet ours remained unharmed and safely weathered the disaster. Without the snake god, how could our village have never faced such calamities? The crowd chimed in, urging me in agreement. That's right, Daisy. If the snake god weren't real, our village couldn't have remained so prosperous and safe all this time. In other words, if the snake god is truly gone, we can just go through the motions and hold a ceremony. There's no harm in that, right? You made a vow in the ancestral hall yourself. You can't deceive the snake god, Daisy. The fate of over 1,000 households in the village rests on your decision. Uncle nodded in satisfaction, seeing a hint of hesitation in my expression. He raised his hand slightly. The others immediately fell silent. Daisy, if it's really as your boyfriend said, and there's no snake god, then this ritual is just a formality. It won't affect you in any way, but it could help over 1,000 households in our village. When he met Simon's gaze, Uncle hesitated for a moment but continued to persuade me. Their arguing gave me a headache, and a deep sense of helplessness weighed heavily on me. I know that without a resolution today, this morally coercive persuasion won't end. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and said, give me a few days to think it over. Grandma Linda snorted coldly. The ceremony is set for the day after tomorrow. You have no room for consideration. I suddenly opened my eyes, fury overwhelming my reason. I snarled at her, then carry my corpse to marry your snake god. Let's see if he wants a dead body. Grandma Linda was stunned by my retort, her face turning ugly, but she stopped speaking. Fine then, Daisy, take your time to think it over. We can postpone the ceremony and set the date once you've made up your mind. Uncle was shrewd. Seeing this situation, he knew forcing me would be futile as I'd never compromise. Bringing a corpse into the ancestral hall would truly be a major taboo. Grandma Linda wanted to say something more, but a glare from Uncle silenced her, and she quietly closed her mouth. Uncle led the large group of people away from my house. I felt completely drained. Staring blankly at the front door in a daze, I can't compromise, and there's no way I'll marry the snake god. I need to leave this place. At this moment, my mind is filled with one thought, run. Simon walked over and took my hand. My consciousness gradually returned, and I looked at Simon with eyes full of grievance. Don't be afraid, nothing will happen. Simon whispered soothingly, I'll protect you. I leaned against Simon's chest, feeling utterly exhausted. I shouldn't have come back in the first place. If I hadn't come back, none of this would have happened. It's all my parents' fault. They pressured me to return. Instinctively, I glanced toward my parents. The next moment, meeting my mother's sinister gaze, I shuddered violently. How could what happened last night truly be a dream? Right now, my mother stands behind my father, her eyes filled with venom as she glares fiercely at me and Simon. I turn my head and bury myself in Simon's arms, whispering for him to take me away. I don't dare stay at home. I'm afraid last night's scene might happen again. Simon listened to me obediently and took me out of the house. But apart from home, I have nowhere to go. Simon and I wandered aimlessly around the village, every place we passed holding memories of my childhood. But now, all I feel is deep fear. Daisy, a faint voice called out behind me, and I slowly turned around. Heidi, it's really you, Daisy, why have you come back? Heidi smiled and quickly walked over to me, pausing slightly when she saw Simon. And who is this? I forced a smile. This is my boyfriend. Heidi's gaze flickered as she examined Simon. I pressed my lips together and stepped slightly in front of Simon, blocking her probing stare. Heidi and I were born in the same year and month. When we were kids, she led the other village children in bullying me, because I was chosen by the snake god. Everyone in the village liked me and would save all the good things for me. Even Heidi's parents often treated me to food, but if Heidi wanted candy, she would be scolded by her parents. Over time, Heidi grew to resent me. Ever since I can remember, she loved taking things from me, from something as small as a pencil to something as big as my living expenses. I never thought I'd run into her again. The last I heard about Heidi was from my parents, who said she failed her college retake exams and went to work in another city, and she hadn't been back in a long time. Daisy, don't be so distant. Heidi took 2 steps forward, trying to take my hand. We're good friends after all. I stepped back twice, avoiding her hand. You and I are not good friends. Don't touch me. I was in a fit of anger and didn't hold back when Heidi provoked me. Heidi didn't expect me to confront her so bluntly, and her expression changed. Daisy, what are you talking about? I said. Don't touch me. Seeing Heidi still trying to pull me, I immediately slapped her hand away. I tightly held Simon's hand, the humiliation and resentment from being bullied by Heidi since childhood welling up inside me. I'll say it one more time. We're not friends. I've already been very generous by not holding a grudge against you for bullying me when we were kids. Heidi, you'd better watch yourself. With that said, I took Simon's hand and quickly walked away. I'm so scared. I'm afraid the only thing I have will be taken away too. I kept my head down, not knowing how long I had been walking, when Simon gently tugged at my arm, and I stopped with him. Don't be afraid, Simon reassured me. I won't be taken away by her. It was as if he could read my mind perfectly. Too much had happened within a day and night, and I simply couldn't process it all. Comforted by Simon, my suppressed grievances gradually swelled, and I could no longer hold back, collapsing into his arms in tears. After dragging Simon around the village for a walk, I realized the place seemed exactly the same as when I left. I grew up in this village until I was 18, only leaving for university. After my departure, the village seemed to have stopped developing. I remember on the day I returned, many villages along the way had built exquisite 3- or 4-story villas, surrounded by lush greenery, with every household driving back in their own cars, but our village didn't have a single car in sight, only motorcycles and 3-wheelers. When I was in the village, ours was the fastest developing one, while neighboring villages were still using ox carts. Our village bought its first motorcycle, which was truly a glorious sight. Simon and I didn't get home until after dark. My parents were waiting for us at home for dinner, and I observed my mom's expression. Just as usual, after dinner, I refused to be separated from Simon no matter what, but my mom wouldn't allow it and dragged me back to the room. I clung to Simon, refusing to let go, and insisted on sleeping with him, threatening to run away from home otherwise. At this point, my dad, changing his attitude from yesterday, also tried to persuade my mom. In the end, the argument concluded with my dad carrying my mom away while I quickly pulled Simon back to my room and locked the door. Simon sat on my bed, looking at me with a teasing expression. I pursed my lips, completely in no mood to banter with him. Simon, let's leave this place today. Simon's expression faltered for a moment before quickly being concealed. Daisy, we can't get out. I packed my things with my back turned to Simon, unaware of his expression, and urged, I know the way out. I grew up in this village. I know the paths. I don't want to marry the snake god, Simon. Tears as big as beans rolled down my cheeks, and I couldn't help but sob. I'm really scared. Everything here is too bizarre. Simon behind me fell silent. His originally calm black eyes gradually took on a faint golden hue as I spoke. Daisy, perhaps the snake god is just a ritual. Then I don't want it either. I broke down, unable to comprehend why Simon would say such a thing. But soon, I calmed down. Simon didn't know about the dreams I'd had or the things I'd experienced. It was normal for him not to understand. I convinced myself and sat back down beside Simon, looking at him earnestly. It's not just a ritual. I've dreamed about it ever since my dad called me. I've been having these dreams. There's a snake in them, a huge one, coiling tightly around me as if it wants to devour me. It's terrifying. Simon, do you know what it feels like to be hunted by a predator? Whether the snake god is real or not, I refuse to get married. I'd rather die than go through with it. I don't know if it's just my imagination, but when I uttered those last words, Simon's pitch-black eyes momentarily turned into vertical slits. I forced myself not to let my thoughts run wild. Now Simon is all I have left. I was the one who brought him here, so I must take him back with me. I continued packing. Fortunately, we hadn't planned to stay long when we came back. So Simon and I only brought 2 changes of clothes in our backpacks. Simon, we'll go out through the back door later, follow the path through the bamboo grove, and we'll reach the village entrance. I kept talking to myself, completely unaware that behind me, Simon was enveloped in a faint mist after hearing my words. Those eyes, once filled with tender affection, had completely transformed into golden vertical pupils. There's a bamboo grove behind our house. Crossing it and going up the mountain will lead us out of the village. I secretly took a flashlight from home and brought Simon into the bamboo forest. Simon followed behind me, his pace unhurried, even somewhat dragging his feet. I assumed Simon wasn't used to mountain paths and adjusted my pace to match his as we climbed. The pale moonlight illuminated the bamboo forest, and the cool summer breeze rustled through the bamboo, creating a whispering sound. It was clearly a summer night. Clearly a time for mountain climbing, yet the further I walked, the colder I felt, shrinking my neck from the cold wind. I tightened my grip on Simon's hand. Simon, I'm so cold. Without a word, Simon withdrew his hand from mine, then wrapped his arm around me from behind, his large palm holding my waist as he lifted me upward. I don't know how long I had been climbing, but I was starting to lose strength, leaning my entire body against Simon, relying on his power to keep ascending. The mountain at night was eerily silent, darkness swallowing everything, with only the small patch illuminated by my flashlight remaining visible. My lips were pressed tightly together, my face pale, and an uneasy premonition stirred in my heart. With Simon's help, I stepped onto a stone staircase. After fully standing on top of the steps, as if compelled by some unseen force, I turned my head to look back. Just that one glance made all the hairs on my body stand on end. Something was squirming behind us. The rustling sound in our ears wasn't the bamboo forest swaying in the wind, but the noise made by those writhing things. With trembling hands, I shone the flashlight toward it. Turns out, behind us was a dense swarm of snakes. They are following our footsteps up the mountain. At this moment, after we stopped, the group of snakes also halted, raising their heads to stare at us. Simon. I was so frightened I nearly cried, instinctively reaching for Simon's hand. But my hand touched something icy cold. My entire body froze. Then, Simon's soft sigh reached my ears. He said, Daisy, I gave you a chance. Why did you turn back? I didn't dare to look back, murmuring softly in an attempt to call him back. Simon, right here. Daisy. Simon's hand on my waist gradually shifted into an embrace. No, more like a coiling grip. A chill wind spread from behind my ears to my entire body as he whispered, Daisy, didn't you say you wanted to marry me? Let's go to the ancestral hall to complete the ritual, and we can be together forever. Okay. My brain sounded the alarm. My subconscious screamed at me to run, to escape, but my legs refused to obey. Before me was a dense sea of snakes, their heads raised high, while behind me loomed the chilling presence of Simon. I couldn't tell which was more dangerous. No, you're not Simon, my body stiffened. the slimy sensation of being entwined by a giant snake in my dream overwhelming me. I felt the hand wrapped around my waist slowly growing larger. The enormous white serpent from my dream appeared before me, its golden vertical pupils reflecting my terrified face. Fear overwhelmed my consciousness, and as the giant serpent flicked its tongue and approached me, I fainted. When I woke up again, the familiar red filled my vision. The scene from my dream was almost an exact replica. Dressed in wedding attire, I stood in the ancestral hall, with the gaudily dressed matchmaker shouting, "Bow to heaven and earth," beside me, and next to me was a man also clad in wedding robes. This time, I could clearly see the face of the person beside me. It was Simon, but unlike in a dream, this wasn't a dream. It couldn't be interrupted. My body was completely out of my control. I slowly turned around and saw my parents sitting solemnly on the high platform. My father's expression was wooden, staring straight ahead. My mother, however, was gazing at me with tears pooling in her bewildered eyes, as if struggling with something. Only then did I understand what my mother had meant that night. That's right, Simon isn't human, he is the serpent god. Bow to each other as husband and wife. At the matchmaker's loud call, I turned to face Simon. Simon still had that handsome face, only his black eyes had turned into golden vertical pupils, eerie and bizarre. I was forced to bend down, bowing my head in mutual reverence with him. As I stood up, a burst of intense and eerie Swona music exploded, making it unclear whether it was celebratory or mournful. After the ceremony, I was ushered by the people into the ancestral hall at the back. Behind the ancestral hall was actually a vast mansion. A matchmaker with eerie makeup pressed me onto the carved mahogany bed, sneering as she said, "The mistress is blessed." My heart was filled with nothing but panic and unease, only my eyes glaring at her fiercely. She ignored me, patted my hand, and walked out with the person. The vast room was left with only me. I tried to break free from the restraints on me. No matter how hard I tried, my limbs remained completely immobile, with only my eyes able to observe the surroundings. I examined the room, faintly feeling a sense of déjà vu. But this scene never appeared in my dreams, sadly, even at this moment. I still believed Simon would come to save me. I don't know how much time had passed when, in my dazed state, I heard a creaking sound. The door opened. The one who walked in was Simon, dressed in wedding attire. Tears welled up in my eyes instantly, and the grievances of being deceived and betrayed surged in my heart. Simon stepped closer to me, gently lifting the veil before my eyes. Seeing my eyes brimming with tears, he froze slightly. "Darling, why are you crying?" He leaned down and kissed my eyes. By now, he no longer concealed his aura or appearance, his crimson serpentine tongue flickering against my eyelids. "Didn't you say it yourself, my dear?" His voice was deep. "My dear said she wanted to marry me. My dear wouldn't go back on her word, right?" Trapped in his embrace, I couldn't move a muscle, turning a deaf ear to his words while keeping my eyes tightly shut. "Be good, tonight is our wedding night." Paying no heed to my reaction, Simon removed the elaborate hair ornaments from my head, his touch lingering at my neck. "Don't cry anymore." I froze, my eyes widening with terror. "Want to speak?" Simon stared at me, his golden vertical pupils level with mine, eerie yet beautiful. "Then I'll lift the restraint for you, but you must behave." The next second, my body could finally move again. I collapsed into Simon's arms, my stiff form finding momentary respite. Simon kissed my forehead and coaxed, such a good girl." Hearing this, anger surged within me, and I struggled to get up. Raising my hand to slap him, his golden vertical pupils narrowed slightly as Simon grabbed my wrist, twisted it, and pinned it behind my back. "I told you to be good today, Daisy. This is illegal," I shouted, my fury boiling over as I tried to break free. But Simon held me down firmly, leaving me unable to move. Simon chuckled softly, resting his chin on my shoulder, the coldness making me shiver involuntarily. "Daisy. So adorable, adorable my ass." I couldn't hold back. "Simon, you're nothing but a liar. You deceived my feelings, tricked me into marrying you. It was all intentional, wasn't it? It was all part of your scheme. Why did you lie to me, Simon? Why?" "I'm really scared." By the end, my voice began to choke with sobs. Simon comfortingly patted my back, loosening his grip on my hands slightly as he enveloped me completely in his embrace. "Daisy, I didn't mean to deceive you. I was just afraid you wouldn't accept me, I struggled a couple of times and said angrily. Simon, I won't accept you now either. A mischievous glint flashed in Simon's eyes, completely unfazed by my anger, his tone brimming with delight. It doesn't matter, the ceremony is already complete, whether you accept it or not, you're still my wife. I choked with anger. Simon, before I could continue my accusation, Simon gripped my chin with one hand. I turned my head to avoid it, but a flash of white darted before my eyes. Following the sight, a jade-white snake tail lay coiled on the ground, its tip trembling. Simon, don't do anything reckless. I struggled to break free. Darling, don't be afraid. When I opened my eyes again, daylight had already flooded in. What came into view was no longer the antique rosewood carvings, but a white ceiling. I had returned home. To be precise, it was the home I shared with Simon. Before my mind could fully awaken from its haze, I saw Simon push the door open and walk in, dressed in a navy blue loungewear. He leaned against the bedside, idly playing with a thin, long chain in his hand, his golden vertical pupils brimming with an eerie light. Did you sleep well, Daisy? Simon has imprisoned me. He keeps me chained with a long leash, staying at home with me every day without leaving my side. I'm actually quite helpless. I think he might be sick, because even after I repeatedly assured him I wouldn't run away, he still refused to let me go. I don't know how I got out of the village. And Simon confiscated my phone too. He won't give me any chance to call for help. I forced myself not to faint and, while he was taking a shower, secretly got up and used the scissors I had taken from the restaurant to pick the lock. As I picked the lock, I kept a wary eye on the bathroom door, but the scissors were too wide to fit into the lock. Gripping them tightly, I desperately stabbed at the lock, trying to pry it open. My Daisy is so adorable. Simon's icy voice suddenly came from behind me. Though the words were affectionate, his tone was filled with nothing but coldness. My body stiffened, and I slowly raised my head to look at him. Simon leaned against the doorframe, wrapped in a towel with his arms crossed, watching me with amusement, his eyes smiling. I swallowed hard and stepped back. Simon moved toward me. I immediately grabbed the scissors, pointing the blade at my own neck, my voice trembling as I said, Simon, you. Simon's eyes darkened, his golden vertical pupils narrowing, making him appear even more eerie. Then, he let out a soft chuckle and walked toward me. Daisy, you mustn't play with scissors, it's dangerous. I instinctively raised my hand, only to realize I couldn't move. The hand holding the scissors was slowly pulling away from my neck. Simon paced beside me, then lifted me from the ground and cradled me in his arms. He snatched the scissors from me, twirling them playfully between his fingers. Daisy, you promised to stay with me forever. Why are you going back on your word? He leaned close to my ear, his expression distant, his icy voice tinged with a hint of loneliness. The next second, his voice turned sharp. We'll always be together, even in death. You'll die with me. As he spoke, I watched helplessly as he plunged the scissors into his own thigh. Blood gushed out, splattering onto the back of my hand. It was warm. Simon, I had no time to stop him. Daisy, I love you. Simon turned his head and kissed her cheek. Since you don't want to live, I'll die with you. Okay, but even if you die, you'll still be my wife. No one can change that. Simon, I was startled by his ferocity. Watching the blood gush out endlessly, I panicked. Simon, stop this. I won't leave. I snapped back to reality, reaching to grab the scissors but afraid of touching his wound. I gave in. I couldn't bear to see him hurt, nor could I stand to watch him die before my eyes. Simon's face was deathly pale, yet his other arm held me tightly, his breath growing faint. Daisy, don't leave me, okay? I turned and embraced him. Okay, I won't go. Simon, let's call an ambulance, please. You'll die. Blood dripped onto the ground, spreading into a large stain. Daisy, I love you so much. I love you too. Simon, don't die. Simon. Simon passed out in my arms from excessive blood loss. With trembling hands, I fished out his phone and called his best friend. About 10 minutes later, Simon's friend arrived, pushing open the door. He paused at the sight before him. Save him, quick. I cried uncontrollably while holding Simon. He's hurt. Please save him. Simon's friend stood at the door, looking at me with an eerie expression. Then, he quickly stepped forward. picked up Simon, and strode out of the room. I wanted to follow, but the chain on my wrist yanked me back, leaving me rooted to the spot. Simon's friend turned to glance at me, his expression complicated. "Stay here," he said, "I'm taking him to the hospital." He took Simon away, but this damned chain is holding me back. I collapsed onto the floor, dark red blood pooling beside me. It had flowed from Simon's body, so much blood. So much. I sat curled up at the foot of the bed, my mind filled with Simon's obsessive and chilling words. I don't understand why he likes me so much, going as far as hurting himself just to keep me trapped. Looking back on the 4 years I've been with Simon, he treated me exceptionally well. He fulfilled my every request, showered me with endless affection. If I wanted something, he would move heaven and earth to get it for me. If this hadn't happened, I would have stayed with him forever. I had even decided to marry him before I brought him home. My thoughts were being pulled apart. In the chaos, I caught a familiar scent. From Simon. In my ear was Simon's satisfied sigh. "You clearly love me, so why did you run away, Daisy?" I wanted to open my eyes to look at him, but he seemed to know my intention. A pair of slightly cool hands covered my eyes. "Sleep now. I'll tell you everything when you wake up." Simon's voice was tender and lingering, just like the soothing whispers that had lulled me to sleep through thousands of nights and days. Gradually, I drifted into slumber. When I awoke, Simon was sitting by the bedside. He was still wearing that loungewear, completely unharmed. Everything from last night felt like a dream. Seeing that I was awake, Simon leaned down to kiss my forehead and said, "Eat something, and then I'll explain everything." "Okay." Simon coaxed me through washing up and finishing breakfast. But even as I sat on the sofa, I still felt a bit dazed. "I can't tell if it's a dream or reality, Daisy, don't blame me." As Simon spoke, the fragments in my mind gradually connected. My bond with him dates back thousands of years. Back then, he wasn't yet the snake god, and I wasn't yet me. By chance, I followed my mother up the mountain and found him injured beneath the rubble. I treated his wounds and brought him home to recover. Once he healed, I returned him to the forest. He refused to leave and would often sneak down the mountain to see me, until the day of my wedding, when he saw someone else kiss me. Resentment and bitterness welled up in his heart. He hated that he wasn't human and couldn't stay with me forever. For the next 100 years, he devoted himself to cultivation, finally gaining the ability to take human form. He came to me, and we met, understood each other, and fell in love. But after all, I am just a mortal. Over the centuries, he witnessed my birth, aging, sickness, and death. Then, after each of my reincarnations, he desperately searched for me, doing everything he could to spend a lifetime with me. Each of my reincarnations was a fresh start. Gradually, I forgot him, and he slowly lost the ability to sense my presence. Later, the duration of my reincarnations grew longer, and so did his waiting. By chance, he caught a faint trace of my presence in the village. He waited there ever since, and to ensure my smooth reincarnation, he helped the village several times. Over time, his reputation spread far and wide, gradually evolved into the snake god. He waited in the village for 100 years, and finally, he waited for me. While in the village, he protected me, and when I went to university, he became Simon. From the moment I left the village, he followed me relentlessly. He lured me into loving him, lured me into marrying him, because only when my name appears alongside his in the ancestral hall where offerings are made, in the family genealogy he meticulously constructed, would he never lose me again. But since childhood, I've been deeply averse to the snake god, unwilling to even step into the ancestral hall, fearing that appearing as the snake god would make me reject him. He decided to coax me home and trick me into marriage. After hearing all this, I feel a bit overwhelmed. Everything is too mysterious, and I'm having trouble processing it. Seeing that I remained silent, Simon thought I was angry. He tightened his grip around my arm and said in a very domineering tone, "I've told you everything. Please don't leave me, okay?" I took a deep breath, turned to face Simon's golden vertical pupils, and felt somewhat dazed. To be honest, I never imagined the truth would be like this. I caressed his handsome face and sighed softly. "Simon, you shouldn't have lied to me." I love Simon, even if he were the snake god. I think I would have agreed without hesitation, from the moment I first saw Simon. A voice in my heart kept repeating, "I want to be with him forever." This voice, over the 4 years I spent with Simon, became deeply engraved in my memory, in my very bones. So this is where the voice in my heart came from. Daisy, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have lied to you. I apologize, I'm sorry. Simon frantically tightened his embrace, repeatedly apologizing, afraid that I might push him away. I remained silent for a moment before raising my hand to stroke his head buried in my shoulder. From now on, don't lie to me again, Simon shuddered, then wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into a tight hug. All right, after clearing things up with Simon, everything returned to normal. He just became more obedient to me. Later, I took some time to call my parents, intending to tell them about my decision, but when I brought it up, my parents' faces were completely blank with confusion. I looked at Simon. Simon awkwardly rubbed his nose and came over to hug me. After hanging up the phone, I pinched Simon's ear, lying to me again. Simon leaned in for kisses and hugs, coaxing me, honey, if we don't erase your parents' memories, it'll be awkward going home for the new year. Who said I was taking you back? I was furious and shoved Simon. Simon wasn't angry either, coaxing me in his usual gentle voice. Don't be mad, honey, I'll turn into a tail for you to play with tonight, okay, you shameless pervert. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.